All right, let's turn this way because we're gonna need this.
Don't they want to see you?
They're gonna need to see that. So I'll let you handle that. We're figuring it out, slowly but surely. Oh, that's good.
What?
Can you see that, Joseph?
A little bit more to the left.
Can't hear him.
How about now? Testing. 1, 1, 2, test. Testing.
Welcome to KW. We're a technology company. Here we are.
Someone's gonna come on and be super loud. I probably should put a picture on. I'm just gonna shoot him like, all right, Joseph, talk a little bit more. Where that pulled from.
Yes. Hello. Hello, hello. Can you hear me now? Good. I can also
Talk
change.
now,
Hold
Joseph.
on. How about now? How about now? How about now?
50. Watch, it's just
Hello.
speaker.
Now here's a little story I've got to tell about three bad brothers. You know so well. It started way
All right.
back in history.
We need 'em.
We're gonna get started now, and I'll play this game. I'll go and turn it back and forth, so it'll be good.
I can see it. Kind of.
All right. Cool. So everybody ready to go? Let's get this rocking. You ready, Josie?
I'm ready.
All right. What are we teaching? What are we talking about today?
My favorite of the models.
And which one would that be?
Lead gen. The lead gen
Awesome.
model. And my favorite, the one that I don't do enough.
I can barely hear him.
I think it's Joseph. Is it your speaker or your headphones?
Hold, please.
I'm like nervous.
Turn them up.
How about now?
All right. You good?
Was that better?
Oh no. It's gonna echo really bad.
Yeah, don't do that.
You can get feedback sometimes.
All right. Let's just rock with it. Just talk real loud, Joseph.
Sounds
So we're going to talk about the lead gen model. So for those, does everybody know the 4 models? Who can say the 4 models? You've been in all of them, Norm. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Lead generation.
So what's the first one?
Oh gosh, I don't know an order. I know
Okay, let's just.
budget model, the lead generation model, the organizational model, and economic model.
Nice job. So economic model, the lead gen model, the budget model, and the organizational model. So if we always talk about them in order because they build on each other. So the economic model is telling us how many units, well, yeah, what are the activities to sell the amount of units we need to sell so that we can hit our profit goal at the end of the year, right? So if we want to make 100 grand, how many appointments do I have to go on to sell X amount of units so that I can ensure I hit 100 grand in profit at the end of the year? That's your economic model. But then the next question becomes, well, great. So I have to sell 20 units, let's call it, right? Well, how many people do I have to have in my database so that I can sell 20 units? That's what the lead gen model is going to tell us. The budget model is going to tell us how do we hold our money accountable so that we have a profit margin that ensures we hit the profit goal that we set in our economic model. And then lastly, you've got the organizational model, which is how do I leverage my time and do the same amount of money and the same amount of closings. This is really how do I scale, right? Right now, we're focused on these 3. More specifically, once you figure out your economic model and you track how many appointments you're going on a monthly basis, the economic model is done. Now it's about how do I get more leads into my business? So I always draw this up here, right? You've got 3 parts of a real estate transaction. It's, again, everything has to be super simple. Lead gen, follow-up, transaction management. And really, these 2 pieces, the lead gen, right? For those that are on there, looks like that. The lead gen and follow-up piece.
Lead generation, follow-up, and what?
Transaction management. Yep. So according to NAR, this line indicates when a buyer or seller becomes serious about actually transacting. And that's typically 7 to 10 weeks before you get paid. So I always go like this. That dot that's worth $8,000. The transaction management, notice what the smallest aspect of this line is. The smallest part is what?
Lead generator?
The transaction management. 7 to 10 weeks. Who's worked with, I mean, Lynn, let's go here. So you're working with a buyer. What's the longest lead time that you've ever had where you had to follow up with a buyer for X amount of months, weeks, years sometimes before they actually transacted?
You want the long one or the shortest one?
The longest one.
I'm still working with someone I met 6 years ago.
See, and that's the point. This piece.
Comes in every summer and waste my time.
Exactly, right? It's crazy. So that's why this piece is so important, this follow-up. So I always put, and Joseph, you could push back here, but I always put the lead gen and follow-up. They're kind of in the same category. And when you actually go to, I think it starts on page 131 in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, 133, and you read the lead gen model, they talk to you about the 36 touch and the 8x8. Those systems are just follow-up systems once we create the lead. So what we're going to talk about right now, real quick, is we're going to first talk about how do I create the lead. Then we're going to talk about why should I follow up. And I'm just going to show a quick squiggly line because I'm really good at drawing squiggly lines. And then we're going to talk about how do we actually get these individuals into our database in this crazy market. Is that cool? We'll do it all in about 20 minutes. It's going to be fun. Want to add anything, Joseph?
No, I think it's a good start.
Awesome. Thanks for your input. Oh, I love teaching with you. It's the best. All right. So who wants to throw their unit goal out there? Who wants to throw their unit goal? Well, we've got Megan, we've got Celeste's on here, Mandy, Lauren.
Joseph, what's our unit goal? I never know. What's our team
Do you have
goal?
yours?
Unit goal for the year?
Yeah.
20.
20. Can we use yours? Is that cool, Lauren?
That's a good one.
Awesome.
I think that might be my side. I never did it, but I think that's my goal.
So and you came up with this goal, 20 units, based on your economic model, correct?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to assume you did. So, and that's the next MREA series.
Because it's what I did the first 2 years.
The first 2 years.
But
And there's going to be a lot of reasons that we come up with this, but most of the time we want to make sure that it's from our economic model, but there's a reason that you picked 20. So let's rock with it.
Model, I think, came to like 17 or 18. I just rounded up.
Perfect. Let's rock with it. So 20 units. So now when we understand that, and Dominic, you'll work through this at one point.
He did that. He ran through the economic model this morning.
Awesome. So you know your unit goal right now.
What's
Cool.
yours? Nice. That's a good
Perfect. That's a perfect one.
That's a good one.
So we've got 20 units. So now the question becomes, there are two aspects. Well, there's a conversion rate. There's always conversion rates, right? So the question becomes, how many people do I have to have in my database in order for me to close 20 units? So Joseph, how many do I have to have in my database in order to close 20 units? Mets.
So there's a broad spectrum of discussion on this.
Yep.
What the new model basically gets you a little closer to 10 to 1, the 10 to 1 ratio. It used to be 6 to 1. Some would argue it's closer to 20 to 1. I think to start your business, though, the best estimate would be to start with a 10 to 1 ratio.
Awesome. So what Joseph is referring to is in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, there's a ratio that says for every 12 individuals I have in my database there's a caveat here, on a 36 touch campaign, which means I'm touching them at least twice a month, really 3 times a month, right? That I should find for every 12 people 2 additional deals. Now, what we've found is a few things. One, most people don't have people on a 36 touch, and the market has become so saturated, especially because of portals like Zillow and Realtor.com and the internet and technology, that ratio has gone down to about 1 closing for every 10 people I have in my database. So if I rock with a 10% conversion rate and I know I want 20 units, how many people do I need in my database to close? Yes. Who said 200? Lauren, good job. So the way that, and how did you come up with that? You did 20 divided by 10%, right? So I have two, now I know I need 200 METs. There are two types of, I know that Joseph has talked about this in the past, but according to the MREA, you've got, in a database, you've got METs, meaning they're people that already know me that I've met. And then you've got not METs. You've got people that don't know you, but you want to make them METs. The whole idea of lead gen, right? Whatever mechanism we choose is to make them a MET in my database. That's all. Connect them, get them to raise their hand. They go from a individual that said, yeah, I'll meet you, to an individual that's a two-way conversation. I can now have a conversation with you, right? I always say lead gen is two-handed. So on one hand, you're picking up rocks every day, by the way. You're picking up rocks every day, turning them over to see if somebody wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate right now. To be totally honest, that doesn't happen as much. It's a law of large numbers game, and it's relatively all about luck. So the other hand, though, is about picking up rocks every day to find somebody that you can have the honor of following up with later. Here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we had a good discussion last week about making the distinction between what's a lead and what's
Yes.
a pipeline. And I just went with what I do. So it could be changed by someone else who's smarter and more, versed in the models. But to me, it becomes a pipeline. It becomes a pipeline category when it is a two-way conversation.
Yes.
A lead is just you trying to hook up.
Yeah.
A pipeline is when you have had the real estate discussion on some level. So then you can start, every time you call them, it's about real estate. That's kind of how I made that distinction.
100%. And that's whatever works for your business, right? But keep it consistent. Do the same thing each time. So you can't just have maybe one time you say it's a lead, then the next time you say it's not a lead or you just have to stay consistent. We want to, because that's how you're going to be able to track what is and what isn't. So if we rock with 200, Lauren, you raised your hand. So how many people do you have currently in your database?
My database is a bad example. So I have like 300 that are all in Missouri.
Okay.
In the Charleston area, I have 90.
Awesome.
Like 93. Because that was my first quarter goal, was to add 90 people to my database. So that's people either in Charleston or agents that could refer business to Charleston.
Awesome. So I love the way that you just segmented your database. So I would absolutely 100% recommend you segment your database. Now, are the individuals that are outside of Charleston still valuable?
Yeah. Especially
Wow.
past clients.
Without a doubt, they are valuable because every day, I think they say like 50 plus people move here a day, right? If you know that network, not to mention people are moving out of Charleston, not as many, but people leave, right? Having that network is very important. The hardest part is getting somebody in your database. So you'll hear people say like, just if it's a lead that I haven't talked to in 6 months, I just get rid of it. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. The hardest part is getting the phone number and the email and the name. Keep them in there.
Right.
That's my advice. That's my thought process, but I could be totally wrong. You have, go ahead, Warren.
I'm sorry, I don't want to throw you off topic, but I have a question about this. What about internet leads that are just paid for kind of junk? Because I have almost 100 of those, and they've been through like. As long as they're tagged, I would say keep rocking.
Yeah.
And just put them on a nurture and keep going.
They've been through two full
That's fine.
smart
Just like,
plans.
if they're
Whoa.
not like taking up a lot of your time necessarily, then I wouldn't get rid of them. I still have mine, and mine are dead. But I still have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Well, one thing I want to say is what I'm learning about you is when you set a goal, you hit it. Because you said, I wanted 96 people. You have 93 people. So your roadmap is easy. You have 110 people to grow.
There's also dead lead campaigns on smart plans that you could try to find one.
Cool.
There's one that's specifically designed for dead leads.
It's awesome.
Some of the information, they're the ones through command that you can do a Facebook thing. Well, they're not putting their information in on those. They're just like clicking on it, and then it's giving you the information they gave Facebook 12 years ago when they started a Facebook
Right.
page.
So
So I
that's
don't
the
think-
Facebook info that I give too.
Yeah, I don't think that their
Yeah.
emails are
As long as they're
necessarily
tagged
even
that way,
accurate,
then-
but
Then cool.
Cool. So I'm going to bring it back here.
sorry.
No problem. Because I want to make sure that can everybody hear the conversation or no? That's good. That's good to know.
Okay.
So that you can keep talking. But so the key there is you've got different conversion rates for different. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I'm just going to keep this really kind of 30,000 feet here. But you have different conversion rates for different subsets of your database, right? They say that from a not met standpoint, for every 50 not mets you have in your database, you should get 1 closed unit, as compared to for every 10 mets you should get 1. Does that make sense? So when I think of it, and I think it's honestly, I think this from an internet lead standpoint, I think you're looking at closer to 1%. So for every 100, I look at it and I say, great, I got 100 leads. I know that I'm only going to get 1, but create a systematic way of following up with them, getting them to connect with you and say, hey, I'll talk to you. I'll become a Met. And they're cheap. As long as they were cheap, now you've got an ROI there too. Yep. See, there you go. So it's 1%. That's the
As long
game.
as that one pays for your internet
Spend.
bill, then it's paid for itself. If it's not, get rid of it because you.
Yeah.
Red light, green light.
So that's the other part. Yeah, that's a good point. That's the other part. It's called ROI, return on your investment. If we're going to start talking about spend, right? This goes to our budget model.
Yeah.
But if we're going to start talking about spend, you have to know what you're spending on your leads, on your internet leads, and you have to understand then and track what leads closed so that you can identify what your ROI is. So if I spent $1,000 on 1,000 on, I don't know, on 500 or 300, which is probably close, on 300 Facebook leads, and I closed 1, but I closed 1 for $8,000 and I spent 1,000, my ROI there is 7 to 1. Do it again. Do it again. Just keep doing it, right?
You
If-
actually have 7 more attempts to buy.
Yeah.
Like if you know that specific lead source, you have 7 more times to test if it's a fluke or if you truly can get 1. Because if it cost you 1,000 and you made 8,
Yeah, that's also an interesting, yeah, it's a good way of looking at it as well.
You can have a fluke and then you can have a good system. That'll help you determine if your system's good and you can pick it up. If that's just one lucky one or if it actually happens consistently.
Yeah, 100%. So now we know if I do 200, I'm going to pull it back to your particular database. Let's just talk about Mets here in Charleston. If I have 200 individuals that I need and I have 90 in my database currently, then I need how many? I have to figure out a way to generate 110 new Mets in my database. If I divide that by 12, what's that equal? I don't have a calculator and my brain is not smart enough.
There's a tool in your head. What is it?
110 divided by 12.
1.75.
N?
It's 1.75. It's a decimal.
10. All right. Did you say 10?
He's Rain Man.
I need 10 a month. Let's rock with that.
Somebody comes to like picking up after himself.
So now I know that I have to create a system that's going to get me 10 Mets in my database per month. Because for me to convert from my database at 10% and close 20 units, right? I have to close the gap of the 110 that I need in my database. Is everybody are we here? Are everybody on track here? Or this all making sense rather?
Yeah, it makes sense. And the thing that's really cool about that is if you said, all right, my one thing is to add 10 people a month.
Cool.
There's going to be a byproduct of that focus.
Yes.
That's a lot bigger than just what you have your eye on.
And
Per month.
also looking into, so you're generating 2 different types of people. You're generating people for your Met group and you have to look for immediate business.
Yep.
So that's the other thing of this is you have your 10, like Lynn said, you said, here's what I have to do a month, and I would shorten it to 6 months. And then 2, in the meantime, who do I go after to get immediate business?
There you go. So if we were to shorten that to 6 months, that's 20 people, correct?
Not according to my math, but I misheard.
Well, what is it? Right, yeah. How many is it?
Yes, 20.
Okay, good. I almost believed you for a second. So 20 people per month. So now so you've probably seen me draw this a million times. So now we've got system. We have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. One, what's the system that we're going to utilize in order to do this? Number two, what are the tools that we're going to utilize to create effectiveness and efficiency in that system? Right? And then number three, who are the people that can help us? And I always put it like this, I'll just rock with it. Systems and tools. There's people as well in the real estate business, but we're just going to go with systems and tools right now. There's 5 of them. There's a lead gen system, a seller system. That's great to know. I feel like I draw this all the time. There you go. Boom. Look at that. It's my handwriting too.
Consistency is key.
Exactly. So we have a lead gen system, a seller, a buyer system. That's just your customer service system, right? That's the transaction management. You've got a financial system and you've got a growth system. And then the tools that we're utilizing to create effectiveness and efficiency in those systems, right? That's what tools do. Tools create effectiveness and efficiency in our system. Or a CRM, an app, a website, collateral material, and target. And we're going to mastermind real quick around those things. But what we're going to talk about right now is we're going to talk about lead gen system, because we're talking about literally getting leads into our business. And we're going to talk about these tools to do so. Does that make sense? So if I go back to this 20 people, right? And I need 20 people, forget about all this. If I need 20 people, what do I have? What are ways that I can get those 20 people into my database and then have the opportunity to communicate with them on a systematic, with frequency and intensity? What are different ways that we can do it? Who knows? Cool. So I'm just going to say the ways. So we could do networking events.
Open houses.
We can do open houses. What else?
Calling.
Yeah, we can call.
Like cold call, like sell back.
Yeah, so this would be FSBOs, expireds.
Oh, social media.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Clubhouse. Have you ever heard of Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So I'm going to put that here with, it's like essentially in the mastermind app. It allows you, so when you think about Clubhouse, Dominic, what is it that you want to do on Clubhouse?
Pretty much that. Yeah, pretty much mastermind getting. I talk about people about stocks, talk about real estate,
Yep.
transfer loan, all of them.
So you're in Clubhouse, if you're going to use that mechanism, it's really about building your expertise and showing and then connecting with people. So you're kind of networking you can network with agents across the country, but by being on panels in this mastermind app, you build your own credibility, which is going to make people connect with you, right? I like that idea. Anything else?
That made me think of doing seminars first time.
There you go. I think that's awesome.
A clubhouse of a neighborhood. Like I used to
Seminars?
rent my neighborhood clubhouse and hold it and invite the
Farm?
neighborhood to the seminar.
Whoa. Seminars, yes. Farm. Anything else? I know you're doing some social media groups, right? That's awesome. I think that's all you're doing is creating community.
Standing in Lowe's at the for sale by owner sign section with your cards.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Networking.
Reputation building.
Yeah, reputation. So by the way, I like you.
Your vendor program, building a vendor networking program. Like if you have 30 people on your preferred vendor list, if those 30 people in the same room once a quarter, let them meet each other, you are now bringing their business into the forefront of your business. You're going to get leads, hopefully, or at least reputation building.
So I put that kind of in testimonials.
I found a ton of success just from posting in my neighborhood
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to buy a plant from me? So it's nothing to do with real estate, but now there's this instant trust.
Right.
I want you to sell my house. So I found, I mean, a ton in just my neighborhood. Yeah. So it has nothing to do with real estate, but it's just getting my name touch points. Today we're having a Goonies movie in our neighborhood. Hey
It's
guys,
awesome. Love that movie.
there's a Goonies movie tonight, so there's all this talk and
There's an agent in my neighborhood who's doing that and absolutely killing it. I watched her go from no one knowing who she is last year when we both moved in at the same time to now, and she's listing like probably 20% of the houses in the neighborhood right now.
good for her.
So here's the key
Killing it.
in all of these. By the way, if you go to page 138 of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, there's a bunch of other ideas. Many of these are listed, right? The key here is what Mandy just said is really, really important. It's not like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People simply do business with people they know, love, and trust. It's as simple as that. So all of these ways of creating relationships or creating the contact just gets you the opportunity to follow up with them, create and cultivate a relationship, and then earn the opportunity to transact. Do you want to add anything, Joseph?
I think the big thing on all of this is there's no, to keep in mind is there's no bigger waste of time than to do anything that you just listed on that piece of paper without a follow-up system.
Yes.
Like we can have all of these great ideas and we can do all of these things, but if we don't have a good follow-up system, it's a colossal waste of time. So, and to pick too many of them.
To pick too many. That's another really good point. So 2% of sales, not necessarily, this is in all industries, across industries, 2% of sales happen on the first contact. 90% of sales happen on contacts 5+. And it's only like 70% of sales, or I'm sorry, only like 20 to 30% of salespeople actually follow up more than 5 times. So that is exactly what Joseph's saying, in that you've just wasted a ton of time. Like I remember talking to Joseph at one point, and we were building a recruiting system for bringing talent into our building. And somebody said to me that 70% of recruits, right, of agents, join during the follow-up process. Well, we realized that we didn't have a follow-up process. That means 70% of my time has been wasted. That made us change the next day, because I do not like wasting my time. Like, that is absurd. It's like my biggest fear is wasting my time. So I was just wasting 70% of my time. So if you're only following up with somebody once and you're contacting them just once and expecting a sale, how much of your time are you wasting? Based on that statistic of 2% convert on the first contact. 98% of your time has been completely wasted. Don't do that, please.
Well, that's why the productivity warriors that follows this,
Mhm.
we focus on those 3 rocks. So like it's like a brain
Yes.
dump of like, what could I be doing? And then saying, okay, but what am I realistically actually going to do? And then get in a pattern every week of making sure if it's not, those 3 aren't done, they get moved to the next week because they have to get done.
Yes, without a
So
doubt.
It's just like that's teaching everyone, because everyone's rocks are different. So your rocks are not important to me. The rhythm and the consistency of getting those rocks written down and then possibly moving them to the next week, that's the pattern that's going to make or break your career.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, Wayne. It's so important that we do things in 90-day increments, right? We can't be attached to like, oh, that was good or that was bad. It just is.
Right.
It's okay. Like, I committed to doing X, Y, and Z, and I just did X. Well, at least you did X. Good. That's great. Like, that's just is. It doesn't really matter. You said you wanted to do it. Now we just have to figure out how to do Y and Z toward that goal, right? And we can also probably go a little bit more internal and understand what stopped us. And that's what the accountability warrior is all about. Productivity
It's the
warriors.
mastery conversation too, is that you can also stop and say, if you want to do X, Y, or Z and you did X, then maybe you mastered X. And that's a positive and a celebration too.
100%.
Pull it, I'm sorry. I was trying to help.
So
The mastery side of it is also a way to celebrate Y and Z or later, but X evidently was what I was a master.
yes, yeah, 100%. And stick with the things you're good at. So I'll say this also, last thing I'll say, Joseph, you can close it out, but I talk to a lot of agents on a daily basis, a lot of top producing agents. And you talk to top producers and they'll say, they'll plateau. Okay. They'll plateau and maybe they're doing 5 million in sales and they can't seem to get over that 5 million in sales. And you ask, well, where's your business coming from? What are your 3 lead pillars? And they'll say, but I'm pretty much referral business. My phone just rings. Cool. Sounds good. So what do you think about that particular model created a plateau for them? They stopped doing the thing that actually started their business. Because you ask them and you say, well, how did you start your business? And they'll say one of these. They'll say, I did open houses every weekend. And you'll ask them, how many open houses have you done lately in the last month? They'll say none. Okay. So now you're just relying on your phone ringing because now you've built a reputation. Those are going to come anyway. I'm referral based. That's what you hear all the time. I'm a referral based agent. Good. That's awesome. If you were to go and lead generate and you were to pick an active way of talking to more people, would the referrals still come? Yeah, they would. They absolutely would. So what stops us from doing what has been working just because the phone is now making it a little bit easier to hit our goals? If you want to grow, that's okay, by the way. It's like totally okay. If you want to grow though, you can't stop what's currently working. And the reason I thought of that one was because of what you said. I just became a master at X. Don't stop X.
Right.
Keep
Now
doing X.
Y.
Now add Y. Don't subtract X to add Y. Add X, add Y plus X and watch your business skyrocket. So Joseph, you want to add anything? I went 3 minutes over.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just kind of last couple of things, go back to what I said earlier, and you've reiterated it time and time again. Follow up is key. I mean, I feel like we should have a visual of that stat that you said. 2% of sales happen on the first contact, 90% on the 5th one. Did you say?
Yeah, 5 plus.
I mean, that's hello. And so what that does is it should first of all give you a little sense of relief when you go out and you bang out 20 calls a day or 20 contacts a day and you don't convert anything. That's why. And then the second part I would say is, write these down. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, the 4 goals when you make a contact, and just kind of keep this in front of you because this is part of it. Number 1 is an obvious one. If you make a contact with someone, what's the first goal? What's the best thing to get from that?
A sale.
An appointment. Yeah. An appointment for a sale, right? So the first goal is an appointment. And then if you don't get an appointment, what's the second best thing?
A referral.
Yeah, send a referral. Now we only focus on those, right? And what 2 and 3 is what we're talking about today. Number 2, or number 3 is what?
A closing.
Strengthen the relationship.
Exactly.
Yep, strengthen the relationship. So we focus on the first 2 and we ignore the second 2. The third one, to strengthen the relationship, and then the last one is to add to your MET group. Right? Add to your MET group.
I never heard that part.
If you do one of those 4, then it's a success. We got to keep that in mind because the majority of our lead generation happens in 3 and 4. And we want a majority of our lead generation to happen in 1 and 2. Now, your whole life can't live in 3 and 4 because then you just become very popular and poor. Right? So,
like you.
Right, exactly. But if you're getting the appointments and the referrals is what we're going for, but also give credit to the second 2. And that's what happens when we talk about this 120. There's 120 we talked about today that is needed for that database is going to be mainly in number 3 and 4, which is why it's important to add some lead generation techniques that are go straight for buyers and sellers.
Without a doubt. And
It goes back, and I'll add to that is whenever because I'm about to take over, but it adds to when I'm having the people on this Zoom class or on the Productivity Warriors is the 3 rocks. I'm starting to challenge them to make sure at least one of those is a money-making activity. It can't all just be something building. So if you have 3 and you realize you don't have anyone under contract or a pipeline or you haven't made a paycheck, something's gotta change, and there's, one of those activities has to go into money making. So it's just kind of like discerning and,
Exactly.
you know, to audit your own behaviors.
I think that is very, very important, because I had a mentor. I think I mentioned this at the team meeting yesterday, but I had a mentor at Morgan Stanley when I was building a wealth management business, and I made 300 cold calls a day. I just got on the phone for 4 years and dialed the phone 300 times. It was great. Yeah, learned a whole lot. The most you can do in one day is 501. Just to make a point, I did that. That was great. And there's something really powerful in what my mentor told me. I said, Mike, I'm about done, man. I don't want to cold call anymore. He said, sounds good. No problem. And I said, well, but I only have like eight clients. I need more. He goes, cool, then you better get back on the phone. Right? And what was fascinating about that is his point was, if I don't have this, with all due respect, none of this matters.
Yeah.
If I don't have leads in my business, I don't have anybody to follow up with, and I sure as heck don't have anybody to transact with, right? So I didn't even get the opportunity to cultivate a relationship, which, by the way, you have to do that before you transact. Like, if you don't cultivate a relationship, you will never earn the opportunity to transact. We miss that, by the way. We totally miss that. So if I don't create a relationship to cultivate it, then I'll never get the transaction. So like Lynn said, no reason to focus on all the things that we have to build, like our website and our social media profiles and our business cards and all that great collateral material, which is amazing and needed, if you're not focusing also majority of your time on creating leads in your database, because you will create yourself right out of the business.
Right. You'll build yourself right out of this.
Yeah. All right.
So what?
Later. Signing off.